I never thought I'd see my parents again after they left me when I was just 9 years old. That painful day is stuck in my mind forever. I remember them dropping me off at Grandma Betty's house with only a small backpack filled with some clothes. They promised they'd be back soon. "We just need some time to figure things out, Patricia," Mom had said, not really looking me in the eyes. "Be good for Grandma." But they never came back. The first few months were the hardest for me. Every day after school, I would sit by Grandma's front window, watching cars pass by. I kept hoping the next one would stop and my parents would come out of it. Every night, I would cry myself to sleep, wondering what I did wrong. I kept asking myself why I wasn't good enough for them. Why didn't they want to stay with me? But during that dark time, Grandma Betty was my light. She would hold me close and wipe away my tears, saying, "You're perfect just the way you are, my sweet girl. Some people just aren't ready to be parents, and that's not your fault. But I'm here, and I'll always be here." Grandma Betty wasn't just any grandmother. She was smart, kind, and later I found out she was also very rich. But you wouldn't guess that by looking at her. She lived in a small, cozy house. She drove an old Toyota and still worked as a high school principal, not because she needed money, but because she loved teaching and helping young people grow. The only signs that she was wealthy were the beautiful paintings on the walls and the way she talked about her investments while reading the newspaper. Under Grandma's care, I slowly started to grow and heal. She noticed my love for science and encouraged it. When I had trouble with math, she hired tutors to help me. She cheered me on with every little success I had. When I won first place at the state science fair at the age of 14, she threw a big party for me and invited all my friends. She hugged me tightly that night and said with a proud smile, "That's my girl. You're going to change the world someday." After that, life became easier. It was just Grandma and me, and we made the best of it. She never spoke badly about my parents, but she always made sure I knew that I was loved and cared for. Looking back, I still feel the pain of being left behind, but I also feel so lucky. Because even though my parents gave up on me, Grandma Betty never did. She gave me a home, a future, and most of all, love. I finally began to understand that my parents leaving me wasn't my fault. Grandma Betty would often say in her calm voice, "Sometimes people make choices they can't take back. But remember, those choices say more about them than they do about you." After hearing that many times, I slowly stopped thinking about my parents. I stopped waiting for them to come back. I stopped wondering why they left me behind. I had Grandma, and that was more than enough. She gave me all the love and care I needed. She was my whole world. Then came my 19th birthday. Grandma planned a beautiful party at her favorite restaurant. She invited all my friends and made the night feel really special. At the end of the evening, she handed me a small box. Inside was a lovely gold necklace with a tiny key pendant. "This is more than just a piece of jewelry, Patricia," she said with a small smile. "Keep it safe. One day, it will all make sense." At the time, I didn't understand what she meant. I had no idea that this would be our last celebration together. For months later, everything changed. Grandma Betty collapsed at school while she was working. By the time I got to the hospital, it was too late. The doctor said it was a heart attack and that she didn't suffer. But the pain I felt was overwhelming. It was like a storm had ripped through me, leaving only sadness and emptiness behind. Her funeral was just the way she would have wanted. The church was filled with her former students, who stood up and shared stories of how Grandma had changed their lives. I sat alone in the front row, holding the key necklace tightly in my hand, trying to stay strong the way she had always taught me. That's when I saw them, my parents. They walked into the church as if they had every right to be there, like they hadn't left me behind 11 years ago. Mom had gray in her hair now, and Dad looked heavier, but I recognized them instantly. My heart froze and then began to beat wildly in my chest. They slowly walked toward me. Their faces showed what looked like sadness and worry. Mom reached for my hand and said gently, "Patricia, sweetheart." I pulled my hand back without thinking. Dad spoke next, his voice quiet. "We came as soon as we heard. We're so sorry about your grandmother." He paused and looked at me seriously. We know it's been a long time, but we're here now. You'll come home with us, of course. You're still a minor for a few more months, and we're your legal guardians." I stared at them, confused and angry. After all this time, they suddenly wanted to act like parents again? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After 11 years of no calls, no visits, no letters, nothing, they suddenly wanted to act like a happy family again? "I'm not going anywhere with you," I said, my voice shaking with anger and pain. Grandma Betty was my real home. Mom's expression changed. Her voice became firm, just like I remembered from when I was little. "Don't be difficult, Patricia. We're your parents. You don't get to decide this." But then a deep voice cut in. "Actually, she does." We all turned to see a tall man in a sharp suit walking toward us. He held a leather briefcase and looked very serious. "I'm Kevin Bacon," he said, "Betty Evereye's attorney. We need to talk about your grandmother's will." The moment he said will, everything changed. My mom's eyes lit up like someone had just told her she'd won the lottery. My dad straightened his tie nervously and quickly added, "Of course. We're her only living family, after all." But Mr. Bacon didn't smile. He just looked calm and serious. "Let's step into the private room. There are important matters we need to go over right away." As we followed him, I felt my hand reach up and grip the little key necklace Grandma Betty had given me on my birthday. Somehow, deep inside, I knew this moment was going to change everything. I just didn't know how much yet. The private room in the church was small and quiet. It felt like all the air had been sucked out of it. Mr. Bacon sat across from us at a polished wooden table and carefully took out papers from his briefcase. My parents sat on either side of me, trying to look calm and caring, but I saw how their eyes kept flicking to the documents. They weren't thinking about me. They were thinking about Grandma's money. Mr. Bacon looked at me and said, "Before we start, Miss Patricia, could you please show me the necklace your grandmother gave you?" My parents looked confused, but I reached for the key around my neck and held it up. Mr. Bacon smiled just a little.
"Perfect," he said.
Then he opened the folder in front of him and began to read. "I, Betty Evereye's, being of sound mind, declare this to be my last will and testament." At first, all the legal words blurred together. I wasn't really listening. My mind was racing until one line made my heart stop completely. "To my beloved granddaughter, Patricia Heaton Evereyes." What came next would change my life forever. "I leave my entire estate, including all properties, investments, bank accounts, and business holdings, currently worth around $50 million. The room exploded in shock. "50 million? Mom shouted, her face turning red with disbelief. "That's impossible. Betty was just a school principal." Dad slammed his hand on the table. "This is ridiculous. We're her only children. You can't seriously be saying she gave everything to a teenager." Mr. Bacon stayed calm. "There's more," he said firmly. "According to the will, Patricia is to be legally emancipated immediately. A trust will be set up in her name. The key she wears opens a safety deposit box that holds more documents and instructions." My head was spinning. $50 million? My sweet grandma, who drove an old Toyota and lived so simply, had been worth that much? I never saw it coming. Mom picked up the will, her voice suddenly cold. "This document is dated just last month. We're going to fight this. Patricia is still a minor. We're her legal guardians. We have rights." Mr. Bacon shook his head and pulled out another paper. "Actually, you gave up those rights 11 years ago. This is a copy of the abandonment report Betty filed after you left Patricia. You never showed up in court, and she was granted full legal custody. You haven't been Patricia's guardians for a very long time." I watched as my parents' fake emotions disappeared. Their sad expressions turned into something uglier, pure greed and anger. "Patricia, sweetheart," Mom said in a soft, sugary voice. "You don't understand all of this. Let us help you. We're family, after all."
Family.
That word hit me hard. It felt bitter and cold coming from her. "Where was family when you left me behind?" I asked, standing up, my voice trembling with emotion. Where was family when Grandma Betty had to raise me all alone for 11 years? Dad jumped in quickly. We made a mistake. We were young and struggling. But we're here now, and we want to make it right. Make it right, I said, shaking with anger. You're only here because you found out about the money. Did you even care that Grandma died? Did you ever care about me? They said nothing. Their silence told me everything I needed to know. Mr. Bacon cleared his throat gently. There's one more thing. Betty left a letter for you, Patricia. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a sealed envelope, handing it to me carefully. She wanted you to read it alone, he said softly. I took the envelope with both hands, my heart aching. Even now, Grandma was still looking out for me. As I held the letter close, I knew it would hold the answers I needed, and the love I'd always counted on. I took the envelope and quietly walked away, leaving my parents behind. They were still arguing and shouting, but I didn't look back. I found a quiet corner in the church where I could be alone. My hands were shaking as I opened the letter Grandma Betty had written for me. My dearest Patricia, it began. If you're reading this, then I'm no longer with you, and you've just learned the truth about our family's wealth. Tears welled up in my eyes as I read her words. I know this must be a big shock. I kept it a secret for many reasons, but the main reason was to protect you. I wanted you to grow up learning the value of hard work, kindness, and love, not money. I've watched your parents choose money over love so many times. They left you because I stopped giving them money. They chose their lifestyle over their own daughter. But in doing so, they gave me the greatest gift, you. My heart ached as I kept reading. The key I gave you isn't just for a safety deposit box. It opens the door to your future. I've made sure everything is in place. The house is yours. Your college fund is full. And the family business is waiting when you're ready. But more than anything, I want you to remember this. You are loved. Not for the money. Not for the name. But for who you are. You have a quiet strength inside you, Patricia. The same strength that helped you survive being abandoned will help you now. Don't let your parents trick you. They will try. But you're stronger than they know. You are a ever-rise woman. And we don't break easily. All my love, Grandma Betty. Tears ran down my cheeks as I finished reading. Even after her death, Grandma Betty was still taking care of me, still protecting me. I gently touched the key around my neck, finally understanding its true meaning. When I walked back into the private room, my parents were still arguing with Mr. Bacon about the will. They stopped talking when they saw me. Patricia, my mom began, but I held up my hand. I want you to leave, I said clearly, my voice calm but firm. Both of you. You're not welcome here. My dad stepped forward angrily. Now listen here. Mr. Bacon interrupted him smoothly. Shall I call security? As the sole heir and legal property owner, Patricia has every right to ask you to leave. My parents looked at me in silence. In that moment, I saw the truth in their eyes. They knew they had lost. Not just the money, but any chance of controlling me again. This isn't over, Mom hissed as they grabbed their things. You'll regret this. I watched them walk out, and to my surprise, I felt peaceful. No fear. No sadness.
Just calm.
What happens now? I asked Mr. Bacon. He smiled gently. Now we visit the safety deposit box. Your grandmother left very clear instructions for what comes next. Shall we? As we stepped outside, I caught a glimpse of my parents in the parking lot, arguing with each other. They had lost everything today, not that they ever truly had it. They chose money over love once before, and now, that choice had finally caught up with them. I gently touched the key, hanging around my neck, and smiled. Grandma Betty had given me so much more than money. She had given me strength. She gave me the courage to stand on my own and face whatever life brought my way. Deep down, I knew this was only the beginning of my journey. Later that day, Mr. Bacon and I went to the First National Bank. Inside the safety deposit box, just like Grandma promised, were important documents and much more than I expected. As we carefully opened folders and files, I realized just how prepared Grandma had been. Everything was in perfect order. There were property deeds, stock certificates, and a thick folder with instructions about a company called Everise Investments, a business I didn't even know existed. I was shocked to learn that Grandma Betty had started her own investment company from the ground up. But something else caught my eye. A small USB drive with a handwritten label that said, "Watch me first." Mr. Bacon pulled out his laptop and plugged it in. A video began to play. I gasped softly as Grandma Betty's face appeared on the screen. She looked happy and full of life. This must have been recorded shortly before she passed away. "Patricia, my darling girl," she began, her voice warm and full of love. "If you're watching this, then everything has happened just like I expected. I bet your parents showed up at my funeral, didn't they? Trying to take what was never theirs." I was stunned. Even after she was gone, she had known exactly how things would play out. "You see, Patricia," she continued, "there's something I never told you about your parents. They didn't just leave you behind. They also tried to steal everything from me. First, your father, my own son, and your mother worked together to secretly transfer all of my money and assets into their names while I was away on a business trip." Her smile faded, and her face turned serious. "They thought I was just a kind old-school principal who didn't know anything. But what they didn't know was that I built Everise Investments from scratch. I worked hard for every single dollar. When I found out what they had done, I gave them a choice. They could stay with me and live a modest life, learn what hard work truly means, or they could leave." She paused, her eyes sad. "They chose to leave. They left everything behind, including you. They thought they could start fresh somewhere else, and that I would come crawling back. But I didn't, because I knew I had you, and that was more than enough." I sat there, frozen, as the screen faded to black. My heart was heavy with truth, but at the same time, I felt lighter. Now everything made sense. Grandma hadn't just left me money. She had left me her legacy and the truth. "I never begged them to come back," Grandma Betty's voice said in the video. "They never realized that by leaving you behind, they gave up the greatest treasure of all, you." Tears rolled down my cheeks as I listened to her loving words. "I watched you grow into a wonderful young woman. You're kind, smart, and hardworking, everything your parents are not. That's why I believe with all my heart that you're ready for this responsibility." The video went on, giving clear instructions about the company, the properties, and something even more meaningful, a charity she had started called the Everise Foundation. "The foundation gives scholarships to children who've been abandoned, just like you once were," Grandma explained. "And now, Patricia, you will be its new director. Use this wealth to help others. That's our true legacy, not the money, but the love we give and the lives we change." Over the next few weeks, everything moved fast. Mr. Bacon introduced me to the board of directors at Everise Investments. They had all worked with Grandma and respected her deeply. They welcomed me with open arms and promised to help me learn everything I needed to know. Of course, my parents didn't give up easily. They hired lawyers. They tried to fight the will. They even tried to say Grandma Betty was not in her right mind when she wrote it. But nothing worked. Grandma had been too smart. She had planned every detail carefully. Every document was perfect. Every decision was legal. They had no case. For months later, they made one last desperate attempt. They showed up at the Everise Investments office, shouting and causing a scene in the front lobby. Were her parents? Mom yelled, trying to push past the security guards. "She can't keep us out." I stepped forward calmly, dressed in one of Grandma's elegant suits, the gold key necklace resting proudly around my neck. "Actually," I said clearly, "I can. And I will." Dad's face turned red with anger. "We'll go to the press," he threatened. "We'll tell everyone how you stole our inheritance." I smiled, feeling the quiet strength Grandma had always shown. "Go ahead," I said. "Tell them how you abandoned your 9-year-old daughter. Tell them how you tried to steal everything from your own mother. I'm sure the press will love that story." They froze. The fight in their eyes faded. They finally understood they had lost. Not just the money, but any chance of controlling or hurting me again. "Goodbye," I said firmly. "Don't come back." And just like that, They turned and left. I stood there for a moment, feeling strong, proud, and free. I wasn't just carrying Grandma Betty's name, I was carrying her legacy. And I was ready to protect it, just like she had protected me. I stood still and watched my parents walk away. As they disappeared from view, I reached up and gently touched the key around my neck. I could almost feel Grandma Betty's presence beside me, like she was still watching over me. That same evening, I sat down at my desk, Grandma's old desk, now mine, and approved the very first round of scholarships from the Everise Foundation. 25 children from broken and struggling homes were about to get a fresh start. They'd have chances they never dreamed of, just like Grandma had given me. Looking around the office, I felt a deep warmth in my heart. I glanced at the framed photo of Grandma Betty hanging on the wall. She looked so proud and strong. I smiled through tears. She had given me more than just money. She had given me purpose. She had given me strength. She had given me the power to change lives, just like she changed mine. The old Toyota she used to drive is still parked in my garage. Even though I can now afford any car I want, I won't get rid of it. That car reminds me of where I came from and who raised me. It reminds me of a kind, hardworking woman who believed that real wealth wasn't about having lots of money. It was about how you used it to make life better for others. Sometimes, when I go to important board meetings, I wear Grandma's old principal blazer. It's a little big on me, but it makes me feel close to her. The board members who knew her always smile when they see it. They understand that I'm not just someone who inherited money. I am continuing Grandma Betty's work. I'm not just her granddaughter. I am her legacy. As for my parents, I heard they moved to another state. They still tell anyone who'll listen about their ungrateful daughter, who took everything from them. But their words don't matter anymore. They can say whatever they want, it can't hurt me now. Because I know who I am. I am Patricia Heaton Everise. And like my grandmother before me, I choose love over money. I choose kindness over greed. I choose helping others over helping myself. That's what Grandma Betty taught me, and that's what I'll keep doing for the rest of my life. Because that's what real family does. We lift others up. We protect those who need it. We leave behind something that matters. And thanks to Grandma Betty, I now have the chance to carry on that mission, one life at a time.